Welcome back to Pixel Therapeutics. We have been discussing toxicity in gaming. Now, I would encourage you to watch the previous episode of this subject where we defined what toxicity is, and we showed why toxicity is dangerous. This episode, we want to discuss what causes, or what can cause this toxicity. Let's start with the first reason: anonymity in gaming. And this to me seems to be the crux of the problem. If no one knows my name, no one can see my face, no one can know anything about me, what is stopping me from acting however I please? Now, this idea that I presented is based on a phenomenon called online disinhibition effect. Those affected by this find their inhibitions lowered to the point where they are doing things they would not normally do. For instance, one experiencing this may reveal personal details which would remain hidden within a public setting. Now, not every aspect of ODE, as we'll call it from now on, is negative, as some may feel the urge to give money to strangers based on this same principle. For instance, if you've ever donated money to a Twitch or YouTube streamer, well, that's ODE at its roots. It's the toxic disinhibition which is a clear and present danger. Now, it would be good for me to do a detailed video about this sometime in the future. And I will, more than likely, but we're only going to spend a small amount of time on this subject here today. Now, there are 6 factors which we will discuss with brevity. Not every factor is relevant when we speak of online gaming, but I do think there is a value to understanding all 6. Now, first of all is disassociative anonymity. That is, we're known by our usernames and nothing more. For instance, you know me as Pixelated Therapeutics, or Pixel Therapeutics. That's all you know about me. That's disassociative anonymity. Invisibility. People may not be aware of our presence online. That is, if I join a chat, if I don't say anything, people may not know that I'm there. Asynchronicity. That is, we don't always interact in real time. If I send a message to someone online, they may not get it until sometime later. Solipsistic introjection. That is, we don't see each other face to face, and so the messages that we send, I can't see your facial expressions. I can't hear the tenor of your voice. I can't even know your body posture. Those are all things that oftentimes will let us know how an individual feels, but we don't see those things online. And there's dissociative imagination. We imagine our online personality as being a separate entity to who we are offline. And lastly, minimization of status. A person may be afraid to say what they think to an authoritative figure, such as a boss or a politician. But what about when that person is not standing in front of you? And an example of this is, think of all the rude statements that have been made to every president, every congressman, every political person since the inception of Twitter. Now, whether or not they deserve it is not the point. But the point is, people feel braver when there's something separating the two individuals. The 3 which seem to be of value in our discussion is, first of all, disassociative anonymity. People know me only by my username. And not only that, but one thing that's beneficial to those with toxic attitudes is these same usernames can be altered at a moment's notice. Steam allows it for free, and one can do it on Xbox Live or the PlayStation Network at a small price. As such, the attitude is that I don't have to own up to my behavior, as I am anonymous to the world around me. I can change my identity at the drop of a hat, or I can even create several usernames on several different platforms. And so when the heat is on, I just create a new one and switch, or switch to another account. There's invisibility. When I am in a Twitch stream, I can blend in with the crowd around me, and I can lurk. I can set my status of certain games or programs to show that I'm offline, to give the impression that I'm not around. And so this may give me the opportunity, if I'm blending in with a large crowd, to act in a way I would not. And even still, there's a form of invisibility to be found in a username. You are not you, but you are this name. Therefore, you are cloaked from those who are in the chat or in the game with you. And so we can express our feelings in a way which would not be done under normal circumstances. And there's disassociative imagination. I can flip on my computer, turn on a game, or hop onto Twitch, and I am no longer me. I am the username which I have. And the things which are said are the things said by this character, or this username. It's not said by me because I'm separate from this person. And so while I'm playing or chatting, I'm not responsible for this person. And the moment I stop playing and turn off my computer, I am separated from those actions. Why? What happens in this world, this make-believe world, has no bearing on the real world. Even though the reality is, as we saw in the last episode, that's exactly what happens. There are real-world consequences to the things that you and I do. So what can we do about anonymity? The answer is not as easy as we think. One possible answer to this is, well, let's get rid of anonymity. At its core, that sounds like a great idea, until we realize just how much information can be retrieved about us online. It suddenly becomes easier to track us down. An example is back in 2010, Blizzard made the decision to take away all anonymity from their forum. One reason why was due to trolling, flame wars, and a lot of the same problems we have today. Another is they were wanting to turn this forum into something very similar to a social media network like Facebook or Twitter. One of the moderators, named Bashiok, showing his confidence in the Real ID system, posted his real name. I mean, after all, if one of the moderators is willing to do this, it can't be all that bad, right? Right? People began unearthing pictures of this moderator, posting his phone number, his address, as well as the names and locations of close relatives. Days later, the company backed away from this act. This was back in 2010. And with all the changes and improvements in not only technology, but in the way people can crack and hack, what makes us think that getting rid of anonymity would spark anything less? Now, an argument to this might be, well, what about Facebook? The argument is that a lot of our personal information is on Facebook or other forms of social media for all the world to see. And I would argue there is some legitimacy to this argument. But my return question is this. Are you Facebook friends with the guy on Call of Duty who claims to have fornicated with your mother and is telling everyone in chat that Hitler did nothing wrong in a very unironic sense? Probably not. Do you really want that guy to have your real name at his fingertips? Now, we understand that if this guy does his due diligence, he can find out all the information about you he needs. But having your full name is giving him a big piece of the puzzle that he needs to make this all the easier. The reality is there's no real easy answer to combat anonymity, but this seems to be a big reason why people are toxic. But another reason is expectation. When I'm playing a video game, I enter in with certain expectations. Well, what are those expectations? If I'm playing a From Software game, I can expect it to be extremely hard, and for all the effort that I put into it, to have a 30-second ending. But it's very fulfilling from beginning to end. That's a From Software game. What about a brand new release from Bethesda? I can expect bugs as far as the eye can see. What's that? Enemies are teleporting? We expect those things in a brand new Bethesda game, no matter how good they are. Am I playing a terrible licensed game? I can expect it to be a terrible cash grab that has poor controls, a poor story, and really not a lot of effort put into it. Well, what about when I'm playing an online game? I might expect that I'm going to do well at the game. After all, I aced the trial that taught me how to play the game. I might expect my team to work like a well-oiled machine with no kinks in our armor. Maybe I expect nothing to go wrong. What happens if our expectations and reality is not the same? I can expect disappointment, frustration, and aggravation. Multiply that by a couple of games, and now we are extremely angry. That frustration, because my expectations have not been met, might cause me to lash out at the enemy, lash out at my teammates, and all simply because things have not gone my way. Maybe I've got the mentality of do unto others before they do unto me. That's right, I'm taking the golden rule and I'm changing it around because some will use this to excuse their toxic behavior. It is an attitude which states there are other players out there with a toxic mentality, and these players are going to mistreat me when they are given the chance. Therefore, I am going to act in as toxic of a manner as possible before they have the opportunity to do anything to me. And there are some logical problems with this idea. First of all, this is fighting toxicity with toxicity. Literally, you're trying to fight fire with fire. And all that's going to do is ramp up things even more. And you may end up getting frustrated, which makes you more toxic. What about players who aren't toxic? Well, you can justify being toxic simply because you might be playing against someone else, but what if that person you're playing against or with is not? You're hurting an innocent person in the end, in the hopes of getting to one of the minority who does hurt others. But you're also perpetuating an attitude that says just because I might face someone with this same mindset, this makes my actions right. And that's not the case. But some have that mentality. Now may be a good time to remind us that not all toxicity is purposeful. In times past, I've had players that act extremely aggressive. They have been frustrated, and at the end of the game, I gave them a GG or GGWP despite their actions in game. And sometimes the return response would simply be a GGWP or a GG, but sometimes I've had people respond back with, I'm sorry I acted the way I did in game. I've had a string of bad games and was extremely frustrated. And then we'd have a discussion, and we'd end up with friends as it's all said and done, and they would thank me for showing them kindness. As of the time of writing the script, I recently, in Dead by Daylight, faced a killer with whom I had one of these conversations in the past, and we had a nice discussion after a more recent game. And so all of these are reasons behind toxicity, and it is not all inclusive. There are probably more reasons we could add here, but this does cover what is in my mind some of the more reasonable reasons. Now in the next episode, we want to talk about what we can do to prevent this. But until we get to that point, I want to thank you for your kind attention. God bless you. Love one another, and let's take care of our mental health.